it was this scene supposedly of some kind of a demonstration or something. And this man, supposedly it was his son, is holding this child, and there's an Israeli soldier pointing the gun. I instantly thought of, do you remember years ago the little boy from in Miami?
Castro.
Elian Gonzalez?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
Do you remember how they showed the picture of him in front of a closet, going like this, and it looked like the cops were pointing a gun? It was the same thing all over again. I thought of that the minute I saw this footage, because it was staged.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the footage that someone else had taken, they go over there and they stage these things that be put on there for propaganda. The rest of that footage showed the man standing up and patting the boy on the back and then walking away.
Yeah, I saw footage that was used for newsreels, and they had somebody allegedly was shot or whatever, and instantly an ambulance came by and they picked the person up and put him on the gurney. I mean, it was like the ambulance was like right there, ready to go for the movie. And there was another one where there was supposed to be a dead person that they were carrying on a stretcher, and they dropped him, and the dead person got up and got back on the stretcher.
And it was another one identical to that, where somebody, it was on YouTube, I actually saw it. I remember seeing the original. But they showed, it said, watch the man in the blue shirt. He was the only person like with a blue shirt. And he was supposedly dead. And they came along, they picked him up and put him on some kind of a stretcher. And it said, now, that clip was from, say, May 2000. You see him like a week later in another news clip with the same blue shirt on that's supposed to be a week later,
Yeah.
and he's doing something else.
Yeah.
He's an actor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's
like
an
you
actor.
said, it's propaganda.
Yeah.
There was recently one where they, I saw where they, it
Propaganda's
was
been
over
going
in
on
Egypt,
forever.
where it was a gentleman who supposedly got shot in the stomach, and as they were picking him up, his shirt got pulled up, and his stomach had no bullet wounds or anything on him.
Yeah, it's all propaganda.
It's just that our reality TV is much more real than theirs.
Yeah.
They need
Well,
better directors and stuff.
Yeah.
I saw the area that they use for propaganda when they want to film the 4 Palestinian tent refugees. It's a dedicated area, tents, in like what looks like a desert kind of setting. They said that's where, the guy told us, that's where they film those things. Because as we're riding down the road in the bus, I said, boy, that's a big looking city. Yeah, that's a Palestinian town. I said, well, that looks as good as the Israeli city across the road. He says, yeah, exactly. So they're not the poor Palestinian refugees.
They only show you what
They want you to
they
see.
want you to see.
I will bring in photographs
they
of it.
stage
I
it.
will show you what
Just
it
like
looks
over
like.
in Russia, they only have one channel and stuff. The Russian
To
people
show the
only
public,
see what
yeah.
their government wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same way here, we just
Programming.
don't know it. CNN and
Right.
stuff, that's our government-controlled station, and they only put on there what they want you to know.
And we have the illusion of freedom of the press.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
They don't
One
tell
of the
you that.
news sources was George Soros is now backing Hillary.
Meh.
Yeah.
I thought,
Infowars.com. Alex Jones has good news. I mean, better source of news.
Another headline. Israel uses rubber bullets to maim and kill unarmed Palestinians. The Mitchell report made clear that Israeli settlement policy is as much to blame for the breakdown of the peace process as Palestinian violence, and that a settlement freeze is necessary to end the violence. Well, good for Netanyahu. When some of this stuff was going on, he gave more permits to build. It was like, yay. Israel's use of F-16 fighter jets typifies the disproportionate use of force applied by Israel against innocent Palestinian civilians. Palestinian violence is the reaction of a people living under occupation, which will continue as long as the occupation persists. Israel has consistently refused to take any steps to calm the situation and is unrelenting in its attacks, provoking in Palestinian violence. I mean, doesn't this start to get your goat?
It's reversed.
Mhm.
It's reversed.
Israel has consistently refused to take any steps to calm the situation, and its unrelenting attacks provoked more Palestinian violence. Israel has no justification for withholding tax monies due to Palestinian Authority. Palestinians attack Israeli forces only in spontaneous outbursts of frustration. The Palestinians have observed the ceasefire negotiated by CIA Director George Tenet. You remember that in the news? It was a joke. Israel's policy of assassinating Palestinian terrorists is immoral and counterproductive. They blew one guy up with his own cell phone. The Israelis did. And at that dinner I told you I was at, the guy was telling us how they did that. They had what do they call them, moles or something? A plant. They got in there, they got the information, they couldn't get him, so they had this, they infiltrated. They're so good at that. They got in there and they did something, the spy actually did something to his phone, because he carried several of them around. It was one of the leading terrorists. And he said, I'll take this one to get fixed, use this one. So it was taken back and they put a bomb in it. And the guy carries it back and he says, here, it's fixed, a couple days later. And when they knew he had it, they had some kind of way to let them know he's got that phone back. He was in his car and they just went, boop,
Wow.
and he was gone.
Wow.
That's how they got him. Let's see. Almost done this. Israel's use of American-made weapons in retaliatory attacks against Palestinians is illegal. Israel perpetrated a massacre in the Jenin refugee camp in April 2002. I was there for that. That was the year that I went over, the group that was going canceled, and I went over anyway by myself and got the private. He had been in the guide business, but he was out of business, and he said, we'll go wherever you want to go. So we were going up through Bethlehem. I think I told you, we went to the staging area, and he says, get out, take pictures, and I'm like, they're going to arrest me for sure. I can't take pictures of the Israeli soldiers coming out of Bethlehem. What are you, crazy? He said, oh, no, they like it. And I did. I got out, and remember, I think I told you the young soldier had a Yankee ball cap, and I went over, I had my camera, and he saw everything that had happened, and he knew it was an Israeli vehicle and everything, not a rental car. And he's smiling, and he's holding his gun, and I said, where'd you get the Yankee ball cap? Oh, I said English, and he went, uh-huh. I said, where'd you get the Yankee ball cap? He says, I'm from Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. I said, oh.
Sakes.
What are you doing? He's like, oh, yeah. So he was all happy and everything. I took his picture and sent it to his dad who lived in Miami and all that. But we were going up through the West Bank, and Doran, the guide, driving his own car, that was the same time the Jenin massacre supposedly had happened while I was over there. And he was saying that they went in there, knocked on a couple of doors. They didn't kill anybody. I know what they're doing. I know friends. My friends are in the reserves and they're in, the military and all. I know what's going on. They didn't kill anybody. There was no massacre. It came out later in the investigation months later. There was no massacre. None. But it was all propaganda.
Yeah.
So, in fact, when we were going up to the West Bank, there's little signs that will say like Jericho, Bethlehem, Jenin is, as you're going up. Jenin is like right in, let's see. It's right around here somewhere. And we were going to Tiberias, and we were going up Route 9, up there through the West Bank. And I said, let's go to Janine and see. He says, you want? I said, no. So, I mean, it was fun. It was exciting, not fun. It was exciting. But anyway, Israel opposed an investigation by the United Nations because it wanted to conceal crimes that it committed in Jenin. Israel prevents Palestinian ambulances from taking sick and injured Palestinians to hospitals. When I was with the Jewish group, big givers to Hadassah Hospital, we went in there, we met some of the terrorist victims who were paralyzed in wheelchairs, heads bandaged, and the one lady's in a wheelchair, she had like 9 kids, she was Orthodox. She was sitting there and they had her meet us and shake our hand, and we said, you know, how did it happen? She was permanently going to be in a wheelchair. And she says, I was coming out of work and we were all in a van going home to our village, and a bullet come through the window and hit me in the spinal cord. And then we went on a tour of the floor, and there were actually Arabs in the beds, Palestinians in the beds, and Israeli soldiers in the hallway on gurneys. So nobody can tell me, I saw it with my own eyes. And they told us how that they take care of these people, especially children. They had a whole wing of the Hadassah Hospital. It's a children's wing, like Hershey, it's state of the art. And there were just as many Syrian kids in there, and, you know, Palestinian kids and everything that you just can't imagine. So when they put this kind of propaganda out there and you've actually seen it, you want to go beat them over the head. So anyhow, as I said again, the beat goes on. It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
So now we're up to February 2001. And it's not, we're not going to go through every single year because we're almost done. But February 2001, after that summit in Taba, the Egyptian town, 2 weeks after the negotiations at Taba, Ariel Sharon was elected prime minister, defeating Barak in a landslide. Palestinian Intifada cycle of violence continued and escalated. Now I'm going to go year by year instead of month by month in each year. Excuse me. March 2002. After a suicide bomber killed 30 people attending a Seder at Passover at the Park Hotel in Netanya. Netanya is right here. Here's Netanya. There's Tulkarm. It's called Tulkarm. This is Arab. There's only 9 miles between that. The suicide bomber had come out of Tulkarm, went right across the road, went to the Park Hotel, rushed the guards that were outside, because they did, at that time, everywhere there had a guard at the door. Grocery store, McDonald's, whatever. They had armed guards at every door with metal detectors and everything. Well, this Palestinian suicide bomber rushed the guards to get in there. It was a room, oh, it was like probably 4 times bigger than this room. And it had columns, and all these windows looked out over the Mediterranean. I forget how many people were actually at the Seder. But he rushed the guards, ran in there, and released his suicide bomb. I don't know whether it was like 53 or 63 people were outright killed, and I don't know how many were injured. But we went to visit with this Jewish group I was with. We went to visit the Park Hotel to show solidarity, and they had left that bottom floor as it was. I mean, they cleaned up the mess, but they had left it, they didn't whitewash anything. It was just as happened as a memorial. And they had candles, you know how people put the candles in the sites. And then after that, we went across the road to the wall that then had, they built to separate, no, this was the next year. The wall they built to separate the Palestinian town from Netanya, and gave the soldiers candy and stuff like that. And they were sniping with sniper fire then. You could hear it pinging off the wall. And it was something to see. I mean, when I was typing this up, I got thinking, I saw a lot more when I started putting it together. A lot more happened while I was there than, I mean, you remember it, but when you start seeing it all the time, you saw this
You were
stuff.
pretty close if you heard bullets pinging off the wall.
Well, they
You were
couldn't
real
come
close.
through. Yeah, you know, when you go along the highway, they put the sound barriers up along. Well, it's like that, only a lot thicker, and it's all electronically controlled.
So the bullet was hitting the outside of that.
Yeah.
But you could hear it.
You could hear it.
Wow.
In fact, there was this, one of the women in the group, an older woman, she was a federal judge from California. And she was kind of hoity-toity. And she liked doing things her own way. They would tell you to do something, or get on the bus now, or do this and that, and she'd always go off and do her own thing. And along this wall, it was a checkpoint, and they were explaining to us how it worked and all that stuff. And we look over, and there she goes off. There was stairs, like a ladder kind of stairs, going up to the top of the wall. Well, every now and then you had to have these because they did things electronically up there that, you know. She's climbing this,
Wow.
climbing the steps, and we're hearing, you know, and that, what is that? That's sniper fire. They know you're here, they're just playing. Well, when those soldiers saw her get halfway up that stairs, that's pretty high. They started running and screaming toward her, and she's like, well, what? And it's like, do you want to get killed? You want us all to have a court-martial because we let you get killed? You know, they were upset. But, oh, okay, well, all right, don't get flustered.
He's just trying to get killed.
Federal judge. Where's her head?
No common sense.
So anyway,
She was gonna go up there and explain it to
she was going to look over.
Sure.
Not for long. Not for long.
Put her
I
right
remember
side of that.
this friend of mine, Elliot, he went to the synagogue where I did, Elliot Weinstein, and his wife didn't go along. We actually went to the airport with his daughter and everything. Well, I'm standing next to Elliot, and the last thing Sue, his wife, had said to him was, now, don't you do anything dangerous, or don't you go anywhere that's risky or anything. And he, well, I won't. So I'm standing next to him, and we're hearing the federal judge getting yelled at for climbing the ladder, and we're hearing ping, ping, ping off the wall, and he goes, don't tell Sue that we were here. I said, okay. Oh. So the fence was completed in 2007 at the close of the first week of Jacob's trouble. In 2003, but until 2007, the Palestinian Intifada cycle of violence continued and escalated. And then in 2003, in January, there was the Tel Aviv Central Bus Station massacre. I was there for that. I mean, I wasn't there. I was in Jerusalem. The central bus station is right in the heart of Jerusalem, right? I mean, you can get a bus there and go anywhere in the country. It's like, you know, a Greyhound station.
We don't keep up on the news for the 3 weeks that she's there, because we don't want to know.
You don't want to worry.
Okay, the Tel Aviv Central Bus Station massacre. 23 Israeli civilians were killed. In March, this is just in 2003. In March, there was another bus bombing in Haifa, killing 16 civilians and 9 children. In April, the quartet, you know, remember who the quartet was? Tony Blair and Bush. On the Middle East announces the Roadmap for Peace, which was another Oslo imitator. In June, another bus bombing in Davivka Square, killing 17 Israeli civilians. In July, the International Court of Justice rules the security fence being built as a counterterrorism protective measure is an unlawful act of annexation because it's dividing the Palestinian villages from the Israelis. In August, another bus bombing in Jerusalem, killing 23 Israeli civilians with over 130 wounded. In October, a Palestinian female suicide bomber explodes herself in the Maxim restaurant, killing 21 Israelis in June 51. This was just 1 year. In 2004, getting a little
It's
closer.
closer, yeah.
In January, the Gaza Street bombing, 11 Israelis killed. In March, Ashdod port bombing, 10 Israelis killed. In May, the murder of Tali Hatuel and her 4 daughters. This was an 8 months pregnant woman and her 4 young daughters. They were ambushed and killed by Palestinian militants. In August, Beersheba bus bombing, 16 Israelis killed. In October, Israel ended a 7-day military operation named Operation Days of Penitence in the northern Gaza Strip. The operation was launched in response to a Qassam rocket that killed 2 children in Sderot. I went to Sderot, Harold and I were down there, I told you that before. And David, the volunteer director of the town, took us to that kindergarten and showed us the bombing. They leave it because it's a memorial. And he says, there it is. And of course, they had a plaque there and everything. And in November of 2004, Yasser Arafat dies. Yay, the only good news in the whole year. 2005, in
Well, they even said
January,
that he was poisoned.
They think he was
They
poisoned.
think he was
and he
poisoned.
died.
Never got to resume
I
his
think he
body.
died of being just so evil that nothing could live in him.
Well, his widow kept him alive until she negotiated
true.
how many millions and millions of
Just
dollars.
too many,
She kept him alive in Paris. He was on life support
Took
for,
over his life.
too many
A month
babies.
or two?
No, we just can't say what's
until
left.
she was negotiating her payment. That's why he was on life support. They knew he was gone.
Yeah.
In 2005, in January, the Karni border crossing attack. Palestinian terrorists killed 6 Israeli civilians with a 200-pound explosive device, hand grenades, and AK-47 rifles. In February, it was the Stage Club bombing. Young Israelis arrived for a surprise birthday party at the Stage Club in Tel Aviv. A Palestinian teenage suicide bomber detonates himself at the entrance to the club. 5 killed, 50 wounded. In July, the Hasharon Mall suicide bombing. 5 Israeli civilians killed and over 90 are injured. In September, Ariel Sharon conducted the Gaza Strip withdrawal of all Jewish settlers within Gaza. I was there for that. We were at a different army base watching them practice for the withdrawal. And because it was going to be Jew against Jew. They didn't want to hurt their own people. And they were pretty peaceful, actually. A lot of crying and all that. Nobody really got hurt, but it was terrible. But the controversy was Sharon had been one of the main proponents and founders of these settlements in Gaza years before. He actually got them in there to settle that land. And now he's the one making them come out. He was highly criticized for dismantling the settlements, but in talking with people over there and everything, we've all come to the conclusion there was another scenario going on that he didn't want out yet. He wasn't just making them come out for the sake of Gaza. The strategy was, and one of the commanders on base told us this. So we think that what would have happened had he not had his stroke a month later, he was trying to get our people out of there, whether they wanted to or not, because he wanted to be able to bomb Gaza. if it came to it. And he couldn't do it with the Jews. There were something like 17,000 Jewish people in there in these settlements. He couldn't go in there and just bomb the place with the Jews in there. But he couldn't, it's also national security. He couldn't tell them why either. Well, I want you to come out so I can bomb them people. So, but the strategy, putting things together, the commander of the base told us, well, we think that's what might have happened had he not had the stroke.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still hanging on. Somebody said that. when he
He's still
passed
hanging
away.
on, and
Is he like comatose?
he's actually, no, well, he's comatose. I just read this recently. He's able to sit up, his eyes will move, and he has responded to his son when he's talked to him just by like blinking. So they think that somewhere in there, he still has something left,
Wow.
but he can't do anything. He's no longer on life support, he's breathing on his
And
own.
that's been since when? How long now has that been?
2005, he had a stroke. And he's the one,
Wow.
he's tied to the Rabbi Kaduri, who supposedly named the Messiah, because Rabbi Kaduri had been preaching in his own synagogue in yeshiva that he had met the Messiah, and he knows who he is, and he wrote his name down in form of a, what do you call it,
Anagram or?
anagram
Anagram,
with a scripture.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Sealed it in an envelope and said, do not open this until 1 year after I die. And he died, and I was over there for that. There was like 200,000 people turned out for that funeral.
And how long ago was that?
That was in 2006.
So a year went by.
It was like,
So who opened the letter then?
So who opened the letter and who was it?
his students, his son and his grandson are also rabbis. I mean, he was 106. So you know what his son was like 80 something, and his grandson was like 60 something. And they all testified in all the news articles I read about it, and it was in Israel Today, that yes, he talked all the time, that he saw the Messiah, and he talked with the Messiah, and he walked with the Messiah, and
But they didn't announce who he had written
not
down.
until after, when they opened the envelope and they had that anagram,
Yeah.
and they read it, and it was like total denial. The students in his yeshiva said he couldn't have written it. They saw him write it.
Yeah, I got a picture of that.
But he
No.
put Yeshua.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And also the name of, how do you say it in Hebrew, like it means like Joshua, or, it's all a form of the name.
Yahusha?
Yahushua.
Yeah,
Yahusha.
so there was no question who he meant.
Mhm.
And he also made the prediction, I'm getting off this thing now, but he also made the prediction, Rabbi Kaduri did, that when Ariel Sharon dies,
That's right, that's who said it, yeah. When he
The
dies.
Messiah will come.
will come, yeah,
and Ariel Sharon's still alive.
yeah.
And they unplugged him and everything, he still didn't die.
Right. Right. Now, when he dies, the question is, does he mean the Messiah will come right then? Or the time frame of the Messiah is about to be revealed?
Well,
And I
maybe,
think that's what he
the
meant.
time.
maybe Messiah was telling Ariel Sharon, hey, wait a minute, buddy, I'm gonna take care of the Palestinians.
Does
You're out of here.
anybody want to wager, if you're a betting person, that he dies right before, or not right before, but
Before spring.
sometime between now and the
September.
70th week?
Sometime between now and September 2015, right?
Because I don't think he means he's going to live through the tribulation and then the Messiah will come. I think he means the era of the Messiah. And when is the era of the Messiah coming? The 70th week, the last week for Israel.
We'll be getting an email from Sherry when she sees those headlines.
Yeah.
Alert, alert,
Alert,
Get there
alert!
get ready.
with
Get
my
your go bag.
telegraph.
Get your go bag. We better get our bags packed.
But it's like Ariel Sharon is the Methuselah. When Methuselah died, his name meant when he dies, the flood will come. So now Kaduri did the same kind of thing with Ariel Sharon. So, So that was the reason we think, that, and obviously some of the Israeli commanders think, that he was preparing to go in there when Gaza, after he got his people out,
And destroy that.
and destroy it.
So the Palestinians couldn't use it for
And
anything.
instead, what happened, he had a stroke and the Palestinians destroyed Gaza because the Israelis left all the infrastructure for them. And there were some very wealthy donors, and I think they were Jewish, who bought from these Israelis who were evacuating, if you will. And they purchased from them all the greenhouses because it's a huge multi-billion-dollar export business that was coming out of Gaza that the Jews were successful doing. Flowers, vegetables, I mean, you name it. They were bigger than Holland. You
Yeah, I
know?
know. They sell more flowers than all.
At the time, Doran, my guide, was telling us his brother-in-law was involved in import and export, and he was telling us the amount in shekels and all that he was making just in doing an export business on flowers. So